Hi there, and welcome to this RCI tutorial video. In this video, we'll walk you through the steps involved in creating a new user account on the RCI. Each person who wishes to complete the RCI will get their own user account. So you will complete these steps for each person you recruit to complete the RCI. You'll be creating user accounts at the point where a user has already attended a briefing session, has had at least 1 week to think about participating, and then agreed to participate when you contacted them after this 1 week. Now, just before going any further, it's useful just to mention that as I move the mouse around the page, you'll see a yellow circle appear around it, just like this. This is designed to highlight the movements I make on the screen. Then, when I click anywhere on the page, you'll see a small bluish circle appear just like this. So, the creation of a user account is a two-part process. You as the facilitator will start the process, and then, depending on the level of support requested by the person, they will finish their own account setup by themselves. Though, we don't mean completely by themselves. A facilitator would need to be available to the person should they need any technical or personal support. To begin, I'll log into a facilitator account and start from the main dashboard. So as you're probably aware, this requires going to the login page and entering your username and your password, which I'll do now. Okay, so we've logged into our facilitator account and we're starting from the main dashboard. If we move our mouse down to the main navigational buttons here, you'll find a button called Create New User Account. This is the button we'll click on to start the process of creating a new user account. Before clicking the button, it's worth mentioning a couple of things. I'm going to open up an image now just to help with the explanation of these points. So this image shows you that for each user account that is created, there'll be a username, an account name, and a password. If we move over to the right here, you'll see that there are two columns. One is the heading, Does the user know this? And the other has the heading, Does the facilitator know this? The username is created by you during the first part of the user account setup process. This username should never be given to the user, and that's why we have the no here to say that the user should not know the username. This is to prevent situations where a user may complete the RCI outside the service where there may be no supports available to them. If I go back to the main dashboard, you'll see that the username for each user account will appear in the username column here in the list of users table on your main dashboard. So you don't have to worry about noting these usernames down to remember them. They're always stored here. Going back to the image, the account name is created by the user when they set up their account. The account name will be known to both the user and the facilitators within the user's service. This is shown here by the yes in both user and facilitator columns. Again, going back to your main dashboard, you'll see the account name appears in the account name column here in the list of users table on your main dashboard. It's worth pointing out that you will see the account name and the username for every user account that is created within your service, even if you weren't involved with their account setup in any way. Account names are not used to log into the RCI. The account name is effectively an anonymous identifier, or you could call it a fake real name for the user, and it's used instead of requiring users to enter their real names. The reason you will see every user's username and account name is so that when a user wishes to complete the RCI, they will be able to tell you or another facilitator what their account name is. This then lets you find their username from the list of users table on your main dashboard. So you can then input the username into the login page for them, and they can then enter their password to log in. Going back to the image one last time, the password, just like the account name, is created by the user themselves. The password will be known only to the user. So as you can see here in the Does the Facilitator Know This column, this is shown by the No. As a facilitator, you should only ever know a user's password if they explicitly request support to enter it when creating their account or logging in. So we'll go back to the main dashboard and start creating a user account. As mentioned earlier, the first thing we do is click on this Create New User Account button. This brings us to a page asking us to confirm that this is what we want to do. This is just a double check in case you accidentally clicked this button and created a user account that wasn't actually needed. If you clicked Cancel, you'll be brought back to your main dashboard and the user wouldn't be created. I'll click the Confirm button and a new username for this user has been created for me by the RCI system. Just like the username for your own account, the username for a user account has to be just as complex. So they will be 8 digits long and contain a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, as well as numbers and symbols. So I'm going to note down this username now, as we'll need it in the next step. When doing this yourself, unless you've got a great memory, you'll probably need to note it down also. Okay, so I've noted down the username, and the next thing to do is to log out of your Facilitator account. To do this, you can go up here to the top right of the screen and click on the Logout button. After logging out, you'll be brought to the login page, where on the left here are the fields for a user's details to be entered to log in. We've got the user login heading here for guidance on this. And on the right are the fields for a facilitator's details to be entered. We've got the facilitator login heading here for guidance on that. Since we're setting up a user, we'll be using the fields on the left of the screen here. At this point, you would be sitting with a person who attended a briefing session, had at least 1 week to think about taking part, and then agreed to take part when you contacted them after this 1 week. You may have already done this, but just to mention it, we would advise that you check in with the person about how much support they feel they'll need around their use of the computer and with any literacy difficulties. Now, you'll see a note here that says, if this is the first time using this username, please leave the password field blank, as the password will be created in the coming steps. Since this is the first time the username is being used, because we're in the process of setting up a user account, you'd enter the username and leave the password field blank. So I'll go ahead and enter the username now. And as the note mentioned, I'll be leaving the password field blank and then clicking Login Now. The first page you're brought to is a consent form. It's very important that enough time is given to this part of the user's account setup. Each person who takes part must have given their fully informed consent to taking part before going any further than this page. For anyone who has asked for your support with reading parts of the RCI, you can show them the Read Aloud buttons here. These buttons are designed to read out the different parts of the consent form, and they also appear throughout the RCI itself. Each Read Aloud button will appear with this symbol. Sometimes on the RCI, the text Read Aloud doesn't appear, but the symbol will always appear. For an example, when I click on this Read Aloud option, you'll hear this statement read aloud.
I have had an opportunity to ask questions about the study.
Okay, so the consent process is designed to ensure that consent is not given without a full understanding of what it is the person is consenting to. You must satisfy yourself that each person in the first instance is likely to have the capacity to consent, and secondly, has a clear understanding of the purpose of the study and their associated rights. On this consent form are 14 statements relating to different aspects of the RCI and the current study. Although each point should be read by the person, you must be with the person as they go through the consent form so you can answer any questions the person has. If a person appears unclear on any of the information contained in the consent form, please take some time to explain the information to them and answer any questions they have. If, following this explanation, the person still does not appear to understand the information contained in the consent form, please explain in a sensitive manner that they cannot take part at this point in time. If this is the case, you should scroll down the page and click on the No, I do not want to take part button here. This will present the debriefing information and provide an option to download the debriefing document. For the purposes of the video, we'll say that the person has understood everything in the consent form and wishes to take part. In this case, the person would need to click on the Yes, I agree to participate in the RCI button here. So I'll click on the button, and the page we're taken to next is where the user would take over to finish their own account setup. At this point, depending on the levels of support the person wants, it may no longer be necessary for you to sit with the person as they complete the rest of their account setup. However, you should still be available to the person should they require support at any time. So, as mentioned earlier, the person will create their own account name, which is done here, and their own password, which is done here, and they have the option to enter an email address here. So going back up to the top for the account name, you'll see there is some guidance text on the page. This reads, you choose your own account name, and it's very important that you choose one that does not identify you, so do not use your real name. Instead, you could use a made-up name, e.g. Jack Frost. You create an account name so that when you want to complete the RCI, you can tell a facilitator what your account name is so they can find one of the codes that are used to log into the RCI. You will create and keep the second code when you choose your own password in the next step below. Your account name is not used to log into the RCI. To use the RCI, you need to remember this account name. So note down your account name now and store it safely in a place of your choice. So in short, the account name should not be the real name of the user. And even though it's not one of the codes used to log in, as in it's not the username or password, it must be noted down by the user, because if it's forgotten, they won't be able to get into the RCI at a later time. I'll go ahead and enter an account name. As you'll see, I have to type it twice. So I have to type it into the confirm account name field as well to make sure I type it exactly as I want it. So now that that's done, moving down the page, we can use these fields to enter the password. You'll see some more guidance text here that reads, note down your password now and store it safely in a place of your choice. This is important because in order for you to be able to use the RCI in the future, you need to remember this password. When creating a password, do not create one that will include identifiable information, such as your real name, your address, your mobile number, email address, etc. I'll go ahead and enter a password. You'll notice that as I type, the password is hidden by dots. This is done so that if someone happens to be able to see the computer screen as a password is entered, they won't be able to tell what it is. Just like the other account details, the password has to be typed twice to make sure it's entered exactly as intended. So I'll do that now. We'll now scroll down to the email address. This is optional and a person does not have to enter an email address. The guidance text here for the email reads, "This is optional. You do not have to enter an email address if you do not want to. If you enter an email address, do not use an email address that will identify you, i.e., do not use one that has your name in it. Entering an email address will help you to reset your RCI account password if you forget it, and get your account name back if you forget that also. You will be the only person able to see your email address." So, I'll enter an email address created just for the purposes of this video. This email address is useroftheRCI@gmail.com. Again, like all the other details, I have to enter it twice. Finally, at the bottom here, we have a note that reads, "Tick this box after you have noted down both your account name and password. You cannot continue your account setup until you note down your account name and password and tick this box. If you forget your account name or password and didn't enter an email address, you will not be able to continue using the RCI in the future." This is a safety check, just in case someone flies through this process and creates an account without entering an email address and forgets to note down their account name and password as they go. If they click the next button without ticking this box, they'd get a warning message like this. And this reads, "Before continuing, you must note down your account name and password, and then tick the box to confirm you have done this." So I'll tick the box and then click Next. This will bring us to the very last account setup page for a user. So, the very last thing a person has to do to create their account is to answer some brief questions about themselves. There are 10 questions in total, and again, there is the read aloud option that will read out each question and then the response options for each. Just for the sake of this video, I'm going to answer these questions completely randomly. On this question 6, it's worth pointing out that for each response option, the "what is this" text will present more information about these educational options. For example, if I click on the upper secondary one, the additional information reads, "National Framework of Qualifications Level 4 or 5, Leaving Certificate, including Applied and Vocational Programme or Equivalent." So I'll move on and continue to answer these questions randomly. Once I've answered all of these questions, I'll come to the bottom of the page and click on the final setup button that reads Finish and go to your dashboard. And that's it. That's the user account all set up and ready to go. You'll see here near the top of the page we have the person's account name, the one we just created, and the name of the service they've been set up within. For guidance on how to complete different tasks within the user's dashboard, you can view some of the other RCI tutorial videos. Hopefully this has been helpful, and as always, if you have any questions or queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch with the RCI development team.